Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question. And that is, can you really have bonding, trust, and kind of like an attachment with someone who has a personality disorder? Someone perhaps who is narcissistic or psychopathic. And I really want to look at the severe end of the spectrum, the psychopath, to understand sort of the way their neurochemicals, to me, sort of interact to create the dynamics and what you see going on. So you can understand why there is not that connection, there's not that bond, there's not that feeling. When you think of oxytocin, it is called the cuddle hormone. I think it was named originally for the huge release of oxytocin that is like, it's like a reward in the limbic center or the feeling center of the brain that oftentimes is elicited at childbirth. And it has a role, the presentation of this oxytocin between the mother and the child and the baby has a role so that the mother and the baby will bond. I mean, when you see a little baby, you obviously want to cuddle it and keep it close because you know it's vulnerable. And then that oxytocin, that rewarding, which creates the bond, is then thought to interact with dopamine, the reward chemical as well, to further enhance the sense of bonding or connection. Really that attachment and that trust. So when we talk about bonding, we really can't discuss it if you don't have trust, because bonding is a connection, and it's something, when you look at the severe case of an antisocial personality, such as someone who is psychopathic, they don't have the empathy that connects the trust to other people. They don't experience trust. They don't experience this oxytocin. They don't experience this connection. I'm going to kind of tilt this down a little bit. Sorry, guys. I just want to get this more in focus. And you're like, why didn't you do this earlier, Peace and Harmony? Because I did not. I like it to be a little bit more zoomed in. Does that make sense? Whoa. Okay, there. So, anyway, as we were saying, that, in the psychopath, now that we're really understanding it, it is to understand that they don't experience this trust. They don't experience a bond. They don't experience a connection. They don't experience perhaps that release or that connection in the limbic system. What they experience is lack of emotion. They just kind of experience a rage and an intellectual sort of, I want, sort of drive. It's not a warm, fuzzy oxytocin, sort of bond where you feel connected and attached. So you can feel this almost in the etheric energy when you're around them. The limbic energy is different. You can sense that. You'll notice that things just emanate off of this person. For example, the way you feel relaxed or the way you feel at ease is different. You emanate a different relaxed energy versus one that's more like dynamic or, all out there and a little bit chaotic or playful or fun. There's a different etheric energy that emanates from people. And so the energy that particularly emanates from the psychopath is one of allure, seduction, attraction, and it's very one-directional and it's magnetic. Meaning that they're getting you to depend on them and be distracted ultimately by them, and to have your mind taken off of what is really important, crucial, and foundational for you. So we're talking really about your emotions. We're talking about how you feel, how you direct yourself, how you think, how you navigate in the world. They tend to kind of steer you around, but even, psychologically steer you around. And so this bond, this trust is all placated, it's all pacified in them having you always pay attention and sort of, become addicted. Instead of a true bond, it's becoming combined with fear. There's always sort of an element of fear or risk that's combined and sort of mixed up in a very muddy concoction within you, within your own chemistry. So we're talking about chemistry here and how other people react in terms of attachment or bonding with them. These individuals do not have empathy. So we're going really, truly, when you think on a chemical basis, if you could almost think of pouring something in that is that would create empathy or the ability to feel another or respect and understand things, even if it's unspoken, unspoken respect of boundaries, your space, your need to focus on things that are relevant to you. You've got business to do. You've got kids to take care of. You've got things you want to accomplish. So there's a respect and an acknowledgement. And that's really part of when you grow to be really friends with somebody, you can acknowledge and validate that, but it's not tinged with fear. So the psychopath, in my take or my understanding, is that they have a high dopamine reward system, especially for what they want. And so, but it's combined with a lack of empathy. So meaning that they're going to go after something that is detached from others. So they don't attach to others. They don't connect with others. Trust is a non-issue. They're not, kind of caught up. They're trying to get you distracted. They're trying to get you dependent on them in that the unique way that you feel around them, which is taking you out of your element, out of your personal power. And so this feel good, then, your own self-trust is then replaced. Your feeling that you're feeling attached is replaced with this very, very unique combination of lust, fear, self-reproach, meaning self-violation, and then you're sexually aroused and attracted really to your own self-abandonment. It becomes very, very, very lethal in terms of these feelings and these neurochemicals really should not be combined. And that's where you get this feeling of loss of control, is because they don't have the ability to attach. They don't have the ability to bond. They don't have the ability for that oxytocin, despite the appearance thereof. It's all a very highly sophisticated, orchestrated play on your mind and your perception. And so it is to understand that the feel-good that you've felt is really like an addiction to this person. It's not a bond. It's not an attachment. It's not like lifelong friends, something you've shared moments with, shared ups and downs. You can really, truly be yourself, and then they see you for who you are, and then they're able to acknowledge, validate, and then assist you, or be like a sounding board, and then you develop true trust. You can develop an attachment. There is a relationship there. There is no relationship with these types of individuals, despite the appearance. So when you reflect back, or if in your present moment, despite the fact that they're in your life or they've been there through certain things that you've gone through, it's to understand that that was just really just their outward appearance, and what you were missing, what you were always grasping for, was something they don't have energetically, emotionally. It's not, you can't get it from there. It ain't gonna fly. It ain't gonna work. That bird ain't got no wings. That is not your angel. When you think about, really human relationships, they really do fly when you say that person is so fly, or you feel, sort of energized and uplifted, like you're floating around with them. That is when you enter into higher consciousness. And so to me, my feeling is to understand that you've been lowered into the lower vibrations that have gotten you down, that have gotten you crumbled and broken apart, and energetically you feel that you're pulled apart, that you're fragmented, that you're damaged, that you're worn out, that you're tired, that you're rubbed, you've given all you can, and you don't know what else to do. you feel like you've given your love. I'm just going to reconnect this. I just want to zoom it down, and I apologize. So the understanding now is to say that it is to understand that they don't experience this, but they put on the show the status. It's like, even though you might have enjoyed that being sort of addicted, realize that that is not the thrill. That is not attachment. That is not something you can rely on. It is not trust. It is all about detachment. It's all about dissipation. It's all about getting you dependent and really lost and alienated from your own self. But even more, it's tinged with a sense of fear because you're interacting with someone who is so devoid of this that they energetically are able to enter you into a sort of a torturous state where it really you're not perceiving things very clearly. It's a bad combination of chemicals where you are hyper aroused, and then you're almost, the sexual urge combined with fear, combined with loss, and what you're misperceiving as attachment gets all sort of tangled up. And I think of it like chemicals in a beaker. I mean, you're pouring chemicals in there that should not be, and then it's kind of explosive, and it can be, it can be very corrosive. It can corrode you from the inside out. Those chemicals are not supposed to be there. Think back and restore yourself when you get into sort of, you're letting go of that feeling. And even though it's maybe been so strong in your life, understanding that, means it's been so impacted because of the fear element. Oftentimes, the psychopath will play on your emotions, especially your fear state, and getting you to sort of hyper visualize or hyper imagine certain things, that they're cheating on you or they're communicating in a different way, that makes you sort of lose track and become addicted to your own self-abandonment and then disappointment. And so it really then plays out then where you then are then sort of addicted and trying to find other avenues for disappointment that sort of develop. In other words, you carry the torch for them. You then self-sabotage. You act in what they were, you continue the loss. In other words, that hole that you feel within is because you're interacting with someone who does not have that chemical really present running through the system. There ain't no salmon in that stream. There ain't no trout, fish in there. Your fishing pole was in there and you were pulling up some sort of monstrosity that you thought was, a glorious catch. And it really was just a very, if you think a nuclear fish that has like all sorts of poison in it, that you had then, taken in, because you do ingest people energetically. When you think about, people's movement and things like that, if you get people who, work together, their body images will begin to mirror each other, the empathic neurons. So it's very important for you to take notice, and then the consciousness, which is this it's when you're not holding on to that feeling of the torture, and you're not holding on to that feeling of loss of the future. You're just in this sort of very light, effervescent present state. You're just conscious. You're not trying to defend yourself from the past. You're not, trying to fix something or save somebody or save yourself. And you're not trying to control the future. You're just sort of more ethereal. You're in that conscious air. And so that is a very healthy state for you to then be restorative, and then rekindle the ability for you to reattach really to yourself. It's in a light conscious state where you're completely letting go. It's almost as if you had clampers in the back of your back and you were trying to hold on to this terrible sludge. And then all of a sudden that clamper in your back, it just releases. It's no longer high, and then if you think of yourself almost like you have, I just want to say almost like wings, but just where you're not holding on to anything, where you're just sort of uplifted. It's a conscious state where you've let go of that feeling of the past. You're no longer holding on to it. A lot of people hold on to that addiction for dear life. That is what addiction is. You can be highly addicted to a chemical, especially like the cocaine and such is very addictive because it hyper stimulates the system. It etches itself in the brain, and then the brain wants to go back and go to that elevated state, and then more and more and more. So then you see these fiends, and they think that they're normal, and their brains are running amok, and they can't see themselves. They can't see where they're at. I mean, they're so high. The addiction, is snorting them. They're not snorting the addiction. Napoleon Hill, the drink is drinking you. You're not drinking the drink. You have lost control. So that's what happens is the psychopath, that is really, they're pre-calculated. And this is the sad and very, very serious, true aspect of the relationship, is that it is premeditated, pre-calculated. They know exactly how they're going to let people down, ruin their lives. And when I say ruin, I mean ruin. If you talk to someone who is of that antisocial, they unequivocally know that they can hurt people beyond the ability of most people. Okay? They will self-confess to this. And yes, people have, offered to share interviews with me, etc. I've worked with a number of these people. I know, what they are, what the process is, and you do not want to think like them. That is the number one of healing, is the ability to know that you have sentient capabilities that they do not have. You have the ability to feel and connect and have bonds with people. You have the ability for that oxytocin, that feel-good dopamine, that response, but you have to restore it back. And so it is important to understand that that was not attachment, that was not trust, that was not a bond, that was not a relationship. If you think back, you can feel energetically where that person was not present. And you will feel an energy shift of when someone is present and there and respective and acknowledging of your boundaries, your priorities, what's important for you, and allow you to do that, but then still interact with you and, care about you. But yet it won't be tinged with the fear. If you can really identify the feeling that you had felt with a personality disorder, even someone who is narcissistic, this oftentimes is a similar feeling state where you're addicted to a specific feeling that was created by this person. And so it is to understand furthermore that what is so heartbreaking, I think what is so torturous for people, is that it is premeditated, it is predetermined. They know how they're duping and deceiving people unequivocally, without a doubt. It is pre-calculated, it is premeditated. I mean, they can be lovey-dovey, and then but behind you, they're destroying your bank account. I've worked with so many people where it's absolutely horrific. And when we say the word ruin, I mean, that is, to feel ruined, to feel that low, that is a very undesirable state. So unequivocally knowing that to be the case, that this person is an intraspecies predator, and knowing that just having a ruinous effect on your life is their aim, and that they will succeed at that, and they get a sense of dopamine from that, why would you want to try to be close to this person? Or why would you want to interact with this person? You have the effects, yes, the residual effects. It will dissipate. Your body will reset itself with time. So that hyper-arousal will, with time, be dissipated. You will process it energetically with the feeling state of your body. Chemically, your own neurotransmitters will begin to flow, more gently, like a gentle stream. with clarity and the proper amount of dopamine, the proper amount of serotonin, the proper amount of the other neurochemicals, which the adrenals will be the right way. The cortisol will not be aggravated and triggered when you let go of that feeling, because the feeling tends to perpetuate itself and try to give you more reason to enhance it, especially if you have sort of been that seduced where you've like let go of everything and you're like, I love you, you're the only one. You've been in that highly addicted state. And so it's to know that you can release the addiction, and the addiction can be very, very, very strong, cause people to do very strange, out of character things, driving places, looking through garbage, looking through clothespins, looking through cars, wondering where stuff is, having stuff missing, having things carved in your wall, your carpet, your books, whatever it is, that they're trying to plot and, plan and get you to sort of follow them, like the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, where you're like always on the hunt. You're always sort of trying to follow something that you don't know what it is. There's an enigma about them that you're always trying to figure out, and yet it never really sort of you never really sort of get the answer. You never really sort of, it's always sort of elusive. And so this is not a bond, this is an addiction. And so it is to understand the seriousness. So with that, if you release that feeling and then just become conscious, is a very healthy place for you then to restore that feel-good chemical, the oxytocin, the cuddle chemical, getting your own dopamine reset limbically, so that you can then feel comfortable within yourself and have that you're the go-to person. You can lean on that within yourself. So I want you to, some people say, like lean into Christ, where you lean into that sort of feeling of being held up, sustained, supported, where you surrender the holding, and then that spirit, that Christ spirit, that pure white, pure feeling state just holds you in clear consciousness. So that is the awareness. That's like the heightened state. That's where you're just sort of hovering above it all. And not like an out of body experience, but where you're just aware, you're slowing things down to sharpen things up. You're sort of softening your vision to release the hardness of gaze, perhaps, that your eyes had tried to look or figure things out, and all the way that your face was clenched up and clammed up and trying to figure things out, and the horrific things that they said that made you second guess yourself. You should see your face, or whatever, all the different crazy things that they said. Let all that go and let the feeling go. So don't have, release those clenchers behind you. Don't have clenchers like on your back where you're holding on to this. Let it go, and then enter into the consciousness state where all around you is peace, clarity, and freedom. So you've been released from that. And then to give yourself and restore that sense of bonding and connection with something good begins within you. That safety, security, that comfort begins within you. The resensitizing is consciously provided. So you consciously then steer yourself from within versus being steered from without. And so when you do this, you need to practice the recovery date. This is where you consciously make a little bit of effort. It might feel weak. I've never done this before. I've never used my own self-navigating system, peace and harmony. I've always lived life differently, but I need to change. And so the pain is great enough that the change is worth it. And actually the change, even though it's a little bit of work or difference because it's not familiar, it's different, It's not where you were before. In other words, if you were in California, you're now in New York. Or if you were in New York, you're now in California. You're switching the vibe, and you're switching the vibe within you, which means you're lightening up that feeling. You're letting go of the heaviness, which is the burden, and leaning on that Christ within, that spirit within, that attachment within, that good feeling within, that safety and security and comfort, and that cozy chemical within. So building up that oxytocin and dopamine within yourself, that self-trust, which is like knowing that I'm never going to do that again. Because if you always have it in the back of your mind, I'm going to go back, or it's still going to plague me, then you're going to still keep some of that feeling within, and you're still holding on. Release it 100%. You are safe. It is the right thing to do, is to let go of that fear, and then that sort of, being seduced in fear. And, as you get distance and you get clarity, you'll see the mayhem that then people are a part of, and then you can just, detach yourself from that lack of trust, and then distinguish yourself and identify yourself with something stronger, more stable, more calm, more at peace, and actually giving you what you want, which is the ability to connect or have that expression, that expressive part of your life within yourself or with other people, and then expand on it where it's really there. It's not that paranoia, those wrong chemicals, which, because of the lack of empathy, they exude another type of energy, which is devastating and counteractive to your own health energy. So it is extremely destructive. We're not going to say evil. A lot of people on the channel say it's evil. Call it what you will. It is something energetically different. You don't want to play with that. You don't want to be there. Go to the light. Let them go, and release judgment, as much as you can in your heart with forgiveness, because the more you release them, the more you will lighten yourself up and free yourself to do and carry on and move on and go to where you want to go in life. Do those wild dreams that you had, when you were 6-year-old in the playground, or you were 11 or 12 and you wanted to do something, you wanted to have something, you wanted to become something. Those dreams are still alive within you, that you personally wanted, the things that you personally loved, the way you wanted to feel, the things that you admired. Those are still alive and flickering within you, but you have to look at the flame within. You have to look at that little flicker. I've always wanted to take pictures. I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to sail. I've always wanted to build. I've always wanted to share. Whatever it is, you'll find very much that I feel is that you're being sculpted. You're being created. There's a large, hand at work here in your life that is directing and shaping you and molding you according to your higher will. So that higher will, which has been with you, you're now becoming more conscious and aware of that direction. In other words, where it's guiding you more safely. You're no longer stubbing your toe, hitting your shoulder, knocking your head, cutting yourself on things, throwing yourself in a door. Whatever it is that you're moving with more grace. You're moving more coherently. Your physiology is more, together. You're holding yourself so that you can breathe deeply. You're not, sucking in here and then, breathing superficially, and then you're getting, dizzy or whatever. You're not able to think, and you're in that frightful state. All that is connected. So when you release that and you get into a conscious state, that is the new state I want you to try. Try it out, see how it goes. That's how it's I feel. It's like, try how that is. It's not promoted, feel good, natural happiness is not promoted. It's not branded. It's not, Coke the real thing, but what is in the Coke? I love Diet Coke. I love juice, but you have to look, at what you're really getting. And don't be afraid to be bold enough to question things and see through the branding of things that aren't good for you. That was a lot of my study in college, was really in those deep philosophy classes and those deep readings, of reading deeply into Gandhi, some of the other sacred texts, really look at life in very specific ways that are more conducive to really what you do need, so your body can be aligned with it and then go for it. And then you can attain what that sort of is molding you to do. In other words, you then, as I say, you begin to think the solutions. You begin to become the person who's comfortable. You're no longer positioning yourself to be aligned with this negative energy or try to fix it, write it, argue with it. You just let it go. You realize your time is so precious. You're not fighting anymore. You're investing your time and your focus on other things, and you're doing it consistently. Positive, orderly direction thinking. You're connecting, you're going to keep it going. And then you have that consciousness, and you can use the role of metacognition, which is your ability to think about what you're thinking about, to say, well, I would really love to have these sort of books or art books or nature books or whatever it is. And then you begin to make those changes, and you're changing what's in your environment. That's when you're really connecting and creating a trust, a true attachment, the oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals. You generate those within, and then as you generate them within, you reinforce it and then attract others who are also in that same vibration, and then you're able to enhance it and really sort of get into the glory of it all. And it is a process. Please make sure you know the difference between connection with others and others who are living by complete and total detachment, although their appearance is contrary to the such. This is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools.